If you ignore the signs I'm about to reveal, the woman you fall for won't just break your heart. She'll slowly dismantle your peace, your confidence, and your future while you're convincing yourself it's just love. Most men don't fail because they choose the wrong woman on purpose. They fail because they ignore the early warnings, excuse the red flags, and stay far longer than they should. By the time they realize what's happening, their energy is gone, their focus is shattered, and their life looks nothing like the one they were building. This isn't about hate, fear, or bitterness. This is about awareness. Because the most dangerous women are not the loud ones you can see coming, but the ones who feel familiar, exciting, and comforting while quietly pulling you off your path. If you've ever felt drained, confused, or smaller in a relationship and couldn't explain why, stay with me, because what you're about to hear could save years of your life. Sign 1. The woman who thrives on chaos and drama. The woman who thrives on chaos and drama is about understanding a personality that feeds on emotional instability and turns calm into something suspicious or boring. This type of woman is rarely comfortable when things are peaceful. When life is stable, she feels empty. So she subconsciously manufactures problems to feel alive, validated, or powerful. At first, this chaos can feel exciting. The emotional highs and lows can create an illusion of passion, intensity, and deep connection. Many men mistake this turbulence for chemistry, not realizing that real chemistry does not require constant conflict to survive. This woman often creates arguments out of small misunderstandings, past issues, or imagined slights. A harmless comment turns into a full-blown accusation. A quiet day becomes a reason to question loyalty, interest, or commitment. Over time, you notice that no matter how much effort you put in, there is always something wrong. Just as one issue is resolved, another appears. The chaos never ends because the chaos is the point. She is not seeking solutions, she is seeking emotional stimulation. What makes this dangerous is how it slowly rewires your nervous system. You begin living in a constant state of alertness, always anticipating the next emotional storm. Your peace disappears, your focus weakens, and your energy is spent managing her moods instead of building your life. You start apologizing even when you have done nothing wrong, just to restore temporary calm. This is how men lose their center without realizing it. The woman who thrives on chaos often frames herself as misunderstood or deeply emotional, using vulnerability as a shield against accountability. She may say things like she is just passionate, sensitive, or expressive, but her actions consistently lead to instability and exhaustion. When you try to set boundaries, she interprets them as rejection or control, escalating the drama further. You become trapped in a cycle where silence, honesty, or assertiveness all lead to conflict. Over time, this dynamic isolates you. Friends notice you are distracted. Your work suffers. Your goals feel heavier. You begin associating relationships with stress instead of support. The most destructive part is that you may start believing this is normal, that love is supposed to hurt, that peace means something is wrong. By the time you recognize the damage, you may already feel drained, confused, and disconnected from the man you were before, stuck managing emotional fires that never truly go out until peace feels unfamiliar. Sign 2. The woman who disrespects boundaries early. The woman who disrespects boundaries early represents one of the most overlooked yet dangerous warning signs in the beginning stages of any relationship. At first, her behavior may not seem serious. It can even appear flattering. She wants constant access to your time, your attention, your phone, your plans, and your emotions. She pushes for closeness too fast, asks personal questions too soon, and reacts negatively when you take space. Many men mistake this intrusion for interest or affection, not realizing that healthy attraction respects limits instead of violating them. This type of woman tests boundaries subtly at first. She may joke about checking your phone, dismiss your need for personal time, or get offended when you prioritize work, family, or self-improvement. When you try to assert yourself, she downplays your feelings or makes you feel guilty for having standards. Each small violation is a test. If you allow it once, she learns that your boundaries are flexible, and once they are flexible, they slowly disappear. The danger lies in how early patterns set the tone for the entire relationship. When boundaries are ignored at the beginning, disrespect becomes normalized later. She learns that your needs come second to her emotions. Your schedule becomes negotiable, but hers is absolute. Your privacy becomes optional, while her reactions become untouchable. Over time, you begin adjusting yourself to avoid conflict, sacrificing your comfort to keep the peace. This woman often frames her behavior as concern, love, or protection. She may say she just cares too much, or that she wants transparency. But true transparency is mutual, not forced. When accountability is one-sided, control is already forming. You may find yourself explaining innocent actions, justifying normal behavior, or asking permission for choices that once felt natural. Over time, this dynamic isolates you. Friends notice you are distracted. Your work suffers. Your goals feel heavier. You begin associating relationships with stress instead of support. The most destructive part is that you may start believing this is normal, that love is supposed to hurt, that peace means something is wrong. By the time you recognize the damage, you may already feel drained, confused, and disconnected from the man you were before, stuck managing emotional fires that never truly go out until peace feels unfamiliar. As this dynamic continues, your confidence erodes. You stop enforcing your limits because every attempt leads to emotional backlash, arguments, or silent treatment. The relationship becomes less about partnership and more about compliance. You are no longer choosing, you are reacting. What started as small boundary violations slowly turns into a loss of autonomy, where your identity bends around her expectations and your sense of self fades quietly under constant pressure. Sign 3. The woman who uses love as control. The woman who uses love as control is one of the most psychologically damaging dynamics a man can experience because it disguises manipulation as affection. In the beginning, she may appear deeply loving, attentive, and emotionally invested. She gives intense warmth, validation, and closeness, making you feel chosen and understood. This creates emotional dependency, and once that dependency forms, love slowly turns into a bargaining tool rather than a shared bond. This woman learns what makes you feel secure and what makes you feel afraid of losing her. She then uses that knowledge to shape your behavior. Affection is given when you comply and withdrawn when you assert yourself. Silence replaces communication. Distance replaces warmth. You begin associating obedience with peace and honesty with punishment. Over time, this conditions you to abandon your needs just to restore emotional balance. What makes this especially dangerous is how subtle it is. There are no obvious threats or demands. Instead, there are mood shifts, cold responses, emotional withdrawal, and unspoken expectations. When you ask what is wrong, she may say nothing, forcing you to guess, apologize, and overanalyze. Love becomes conditional, something you must earn through sacrifice, compliance, or silence. This woman often presents herself as emotionally sensitive or deeply wounded, using past pain as justification for controlling behavior. Any attempt to address the imbalance is met with guilt-tripping or accusations of insensitivity. You are made to feel selfish for wanting clarity, space, or respect. Slowly, your emotional independence disappears as you begin measuring every action based on how it might affect her approval. As the pattern continues, your confidence weakens. You stop speaking freely. You hesitate before making decisions. You become hyper-aware of her emotional state, prioritizing it above your own mental health. Love, which should be a source of strength and support, becomes a system of control that shapes your identity and limits your freedom. By the time you recognize the manipulation, you may feel emotionally trapped, believing that losing her means losing the version of yourself that once felt valued, even though that value was always conditional and fragile. Sign 4. The woman who sees you as a resource, not a partner. The woman who sees you as a resource, not a partner, operates from a mindset where relationships are transactions rather than connections. In the early stages, she may appear charming, supportive, and appreciative, but beneath the surface, Her interest is tied to what you provide rather than who you are. Your value to her is measured in utility, whether that is money, status, emotional labor, protection, or access to opportunities. As long as you are useful, you are wanted. This woman often moves quickly toward dependency while offering little in return. She expects you to solve problems, cover expenses, and absorb emotional burdens, yet becomes distant when you need support. Conversations revolve around her needs, her stress, her goals, and her comfort. When you talk about your challenges, they are minimized or redirected back to her. The imbalance grows quietly, and before you realize it, the relationship feels more like an obligation than a bond. The danger becomes clear when your usefulness is tested. If you face setbacks, financial pressure, or emotional exhaustion, her interest begins to fade. Affection decreases, respect weakens, patience disappears. This is because the foundation was never mutual appreciation. It was benefit-based attachment. You were not chosen for who you are, but for what you could supply. This woman often avoids accountability by framing expectations as normal relationship standards. She may say a man should provide, handle problems, or always be strong, using social pressure to justify imbalance. Any resistance is labeled as weakness or selfishness. Over time, you may begin to overextend yourself, pushing past limits to maintain her approval, believing that giving more will finally earn reciprocity. As this dynamic continues, resentment builds while your energy drains. You feel unseen, unappreciated, and replaceable. The relationship stops feeling safe and starts feeling conditional. You realize that your presence matters less than your performance. When a man is valued only for what he gives, not who he is, the relationship slowly erodes his sense of worth, leaving him drained, used, and questioning whether genuine partnership ever existed. Sign 5. The woman who is never accountable. The woman who is never accountable is one of the most mentally exhausting types because she turns every conflict into a distortion of reality. No matter what happens, she is never wrong. Mistakes are denied, responsibility is shifted, and consequences are avoided. At first, this may appear as confidence or emotional strength, but over time it reveals a refusal to self-reflect or grow. Any issue you raise is instantly redirected back at you, making resolution impossible. This woman often reframes situations to protect her self-image. If she hurts you, she claims you are too sensitive. If she breaks trust, she justifies it with circumstances or your behavior. If she reacts irrationally, she blames stress, her past, or your tone. Apologies, when they appear, are shallow and conditional, often followed by excuses that erase their meaning. You are left feeling unheard and invalidated. What makes this especially damaging is how it slowly erodes your sense of reality. After enough arguments where facts are twisted and blame is reversed, you begin questioning your own judgment. You replay conversations in your head, wondering if you really were at fault, even when logic says otherwise. This mental confusion weakens your confidence and makes it easier for her to maintain control. This woman often plays the victim expertly. She emphasizes her struggles, her pain, and her emotions to shut down accountability. Any attempt to hold her responsible is framed as an attack. You become the villain for wanting honesty, fairness, or change. Over time, you stop bringing up issues because every conversation turns into conflict or emotional punishment. As accountability disappears, respect follows. She learns that she can cross lines without consequences because you are always the one expected to adapt. The relationship becomes one-sided, where growth only happens on your end while her behavior remains unchanged. Without accountability, there is no trust, no stability, and no future. Only repeated cycles of frustration that drain your energy and leave you carrying the emotional weight of two people while being blamed for everything that goes wrong. Sign 6. The woman who competes with your purpose. The woman who competes with your purpose is often misunderstood because her behavior is not always openly hostile. In the beginning, she may claim to support your goals, ambitions, and discipline, but over time her actions reveal insecurity and resentment toward anything that does not revolve around her. Your focus, growth, and vision become threats rather than strengths, and subtle resistance replaces encouragement. This woman becomes uncomfortable when your attention is not centered on her. When you dedicate time to work, self-improvement, or long-term goals, she interprets it as neglect. Instead of respecting your mission, she creates emotional friction around it. She may start arguments before important moments, demand reassurance when you need focus, or guilt you for prioritizing your future. These disruptions are not accidental. They are expressions of competition. What makes this dynamic dangerous is how easily it pulls a man off his path. You begin compromising your schedule, cutting back on progress, or delaying goals to keep the relationship calm. Each sacrifice feels small, but over time, they accumulate. Your momentum slows, your discipline weakens, and the version of yourself that once felt driven starts to fade. This woman often masks control as concern. She may say you work too much, take things too seriously, or need to relax more. While balance is healthy, her version of balance always benefits her comfort, not your growth. When you succeed, her reaction feels muted or distant. When you struggle, she becomes more demanding of your time and energy. As the pattern continues, resentment grows on both sides. You feel misunderstood and unsupported. She feels threatened and insecure. Instead of being a source of strength, the relationship becomes a constant negotiation between your future and her need for attention. A man who abandons his purpose to preserve a relationship eventually loses both his direction and his respect, finding himself disconnected from the ambition that once gave his life meaning. Sign 7. The woman who destroys your self-worth over time. The woman who destroys your self-worth over time does not tear you down all at once. Her damage is slow, subtle, and cumulative, which makes it far more dangerous than open hostility. In the beginning, her comments may seem harmless, even playful. Small jokes at your expense, comparisons disguised as honesty, or criticism framed as advice gradually chip away at your confidence. Because the attacks are not obvious, you tolerate them longer than you should. This woman positions herself as the judge of your value. She points out what you lack, what you could do better, and how others are supposedly more impressive. Praise becomes rare, conditional, or followed by a reminder of your flaws. Over time, you start measuring yourself through her approval, adjusting your behavior, appearance, and decisions to avoid criticism rather than to express who you are. What makes this especially destructive is how it changes your inner voice. The doubts she plants begin to sound like your own thoughts. You hesitate more. You second-guess your instincts. You feel less confident speaking up or asserting boundaries. The man you were before the relationship feels distant, replaced by someone who seeks validation instead of trusting himself. This woman often justifies her behavior as honesty or high standards. She may claim she is trying to help you improve, but genuine support builds strength rather than insecurity. When you express how her words affect you, she minimizes your feelings or accuses you of being weak. This reinforces the cycle, teaching you that emotional pain is something you must endure quietly. As time passes, your self-respect erodes. You tolerate behaviors you once would have rejected. You settle for less than you deserve because you no longer believe you deserve more. The relationship becomes a mirror that reflects only your perceived shortcomings, leaving you emotionally diminished, dependent on external validation, and disconnected from your own sense of worth. Now that you understand these 7 types of women who can quietly, subtly, or aggressively destroy your life if you ignore the signs, the choice is yours. Awareness is power, but knowledge alone isn't enough. You have to act on it. Protecting your energy, your goals, and your self-worth is not selfish. It's essential. The right woman will elevate you, challenge you in positive ways, and respect your boundaries, ambitions, and identity. She will never make you question your value or force you to shrink to fit her expectations. Life is too short to spend it giving your time, attention, and love to someone who only sees what they can take from you. By recognizing these patterns early and walking away from toxic dynamics before they take root, you reclaim control over your life, your happiness, and your future. Remember, a healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, growth, and support, not manipulation, control, or constant chaos. Protecting yourself does not make you cold or unloving. It makes you wise, self-aware, and ready for a partnership that actually enhances your life instead of draining it. The real power lies in choosing carefully, setting strong boundaries, and refusing to settle for less than you deserve. Your time, energy, and peace of mind are priceless, and once you start valuing them above temporary comfort or fleeting attraction, you create space for the kind of love and life that actually aligns with who you are and who you want to become. Walking away from toxicity isn't a loss, it's a gain, a reset, and a statement that you will no longer compromise your growth for anyone who doesn't honor it. Every decision to protect yourself builds resilience, strengthens your confidence, and sends a clear message that your life is yours to lead, not someone else's to control. Choosing wisely today sets the foundation for the life and relationships you truly deserve, where love is not a battlefield, but a partnership that inspires, empowers, and elevates you every single day.